They didn't vote to save you. They voted on what to do to you. And that changes everything. You weren't supposed to hear about this. You weren't supposed to feel the ripple until it was too late. But you did. And now that you know, everything's accelerating. The vote wasn't done in some government building. It wasn't cast by humans. This was older, deeper, a council not bound by flesh or gravity, a convergence of forces that have shaped civilizations, rewritten timelines, and erased entire existences with a single thought. And they spoke your name, out of every living soul breathing air right now. They chose you, not because of your talents, not because of your charisma, but because of the way you bend the very fabric of fate just by being alive. While others spend their lives avoiding pain, chasing trends, or echoing borrowed voices, you've always felt something pulling you toward something unseen. It didn't make sense then. It wasn't supposed to. But now it's starting to click, isn't it? This wasn't a calling. It was a decision. They debated what kind of power you would be allowed to awaken with, what kind of transformation your arrival would trigger, whether the world could withstand what you're about to become. You weren't given a warning. You were given a window. And that window is opening, right now. You might have thought your story was just beginning. But no. You were placed here mid-script, because the truth is, you've been living a lie. Your reality has been muted, edited, throttled down for your own safety and the safety of those around you. But that containment, it's failing. And you can feel it. That restless ache you've had in your chest, it's not anxiety. It's the pressure of suppressed power trying to break through the cracks. All around you, the pieces are moving. People are acting strange. Patterns are emerging. Signs that seemed random months ago now feel like they were coded in your DNA. That number you keep seeing. That dream that repeats. That one person you keep running into. This is not coincidence. You are being summoned. You're not in danger. You are the danger. To illusions, to false systems, to the invisible architecture built to keep you asleep. They voted, and the verdict was this. Let them remember who they are. Let them wake up. But this wasn't just a vote to unleash your potential. It was a vote about what would happen to everything around you once you did. Because you were not chosen. You were built. Everything about you has been engineered, crafted in silence, molded in pressure, shaped by fire. The loneliness, intentional. The failures, strategic. The people who left you when you needed them most. That was part of the equation. You see, chosen ones aren't born with open doors. They're born with locked gates and no keys. They are forged in rejection, in resistance. And every time you wondered why the path was so hard, it was because your path wasn't meant to be walked. It was meant to be blazed. You weren't made to fit in. You weren't made to follow. You weren't even made to lead in the traditional sense. You were made to disrupt. You were coded with a different frequency. That's why people don't understand you. That's why you've always felt half present, half elsewhere. Because your origin is not this place. You were placed here as a detonator of transformation, not a character in the story, but the glitch in the system. There are aspects of yourself you've been taught to ignore, to suppress, to medicate. But that voice in your head that whispers, "You're different," is not lying to you. That's your original self trying to re-emerge through the noise. And it's getting louder. The resistance is becoming unbearable because your limits are suffocating you. Every job you can't stand, every friendship that drains you, every environment that dims your light is reacting to the truth rising inside of you. And that truth is this. You're not becoming the chosen one. You always were. The veil is just being lifted. But before you step into that power, there's one more thing you need to understand. You're not just here to rise. You're here to shatter. Shatter the constructs that told you who you should be. Shatter the illusions that kept you waiting for permission. Shatter the cycles that repeated in your bloodline, in your mind, in your habits. You are the interruption, the anomaly, the spark that wasn't supposed to happen, but did. And that's why everything is getting harder before it gets easier. Because the world doesn't know how to deal with a being like you waking up. You felt it, didn't you? The pressure in the air, the shift in the way time moves around you. Sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it slows down. You notice it in the way people look at you lately. More curious, more cautious, more intense. Some are drawn to you and don't know why. Others flinch and pretend not to see you at all. You've walked into rooms and changed the mood without saying a word. That's not charisma. That's vibration. You're warping space just by existing. For weeks, maybe months, you've been feeling disconnected from your old self, like you're in between versions. You try to go back to old habits, old conversations, old goals, and it feels fake, empty. That's not failure. That's evolution. The person you used to be is shedding, and underneath something ancient is reawakening. But here's the part most won't tell you. This process hurts. The breaking of your identity, the collapsing of your ego, the silence before the new voice emerges. It's a sacred disorientation. And if you're feeling lost, good. You're not lost. You're between dimensions of yourself. Between programming and potential. Between who the world expected you to be and who you really are. This is the breaking point, but don't you dare run from it. Because if you walk through this, if you face everything that's trying to convince you you're still small, you will unlock a version of you that doesn't answer to fear, a version that doesn't ask permission, a version that remembers. And once you remember, there's no going back. You were never just being tested by life. That's the illusion. You were being tested by something behind life. Not the surface level situations, but the energy beneath them, the patterns hidden in the pain, the intelligence inside the chaos. The setbacks were never random. They were riddles. Every betrayal, every closed door, every delay wasn't designed to stop you. It was designed to shape you, not into something new, but into what you already are beneath the noise. See, the real test wasn't whether you'd survive. The test was whether you'd remember, whether you'd recognize the coded messages inside the moments that broke you, whether you'd wake up in the fire and realize you were the flame. Because it's easy to stay asleep when everything's soft. But you were forged in difficulty, not because you're cursed, but because you're called. They weren't just testing your strength. That would be too obvious. Anyone can appear strong when the sun is shining. No, the real test was hidden. They were testing your restraint, your ability to carry power without flaunting it, to see things before others do and not lose your mind in the waiting, to know you're different and still walk among the unaware without needing constant validation. They tested your silence, your ability to sit with truth while the world screamed lies, and still, you stayed. Still, you loved. Still, you gave. And even when everything in you said, "Give up," something deeper whispered, "Not yet." That whisper was not weakness. It was remembrance. A thread connecting you to something so much bigger than a paycheck, a title, or a round of applause. They watched how you reacted when no one clapped. They watched who you became when it felt like no one was looking. Because that's who you really are. Not the version performing, but the one persevering. That's what they wanted to see. Not whether you could win, but whether you could wait. Whether you could be buried and still believe you were a seed. And you did. Maybe you didn't know that's what you were doing. Maybe you thought you were just surviving. But survival was the symptom. Awakening was the plan. The test is over now, and they've seen enough. The verdict is in. You passed in ways you'll only fully understand in the future, when you look back and realize how much power it takes to stay soft in a world that tries to harden you. Because you've never truly been alone, have you? Even in your lowest moments, when no one texted back, when the room was empty, when your tears hit the floor and no one heard them. Something was there, watching, not judging, not controlling, just witnessing. Silent witnesses that weren't sent to fix you, but to document you, to study the way you move through shadows without becoming them, the way you hold on to fragments of light in a world that forgets how to shine. These watchers were never meant to interfere. They were there to report, to take everything they saw, your heartache, your hunger, your hope, and bring it back to the architects who designed this phase of your evolution. And when they reviewed the evidence, they didn't see someone weak. They saw someone ready for what comes next. Because now comes the awakening of the watchers themselves. Not the ones watching you, but the ones inside of you. The parts of you that have been dormant. The instincts you silenced because the world told you to be more normal, more polite, more realistic. But now those instincts are rising. The dreams that scared you with their intensity, they're coming back. The visions that made you question your sanity, they're becoming clearer. The coincidences are no longer coincidences. They're confirmations. You're not the only one waking up. The entire structure of your inner being is aligning for what comes next. And what comes next will demand clarity. No more pretending not to know. No more shrinking to fit spaces you've outgrown. No more downplaying the power you've always carried. Because the power isn't something you'll find out there. It's not in a book. It's not in a guru. It's not even in the stars. The power is in your remembrance. You don't need to become anything. You need to return to that original frequency you were born with, before the noise, before the conditioning, before you were told to sit down, be quiet, stay safe. That version of you, the unfiltered, untamed, undeniable force, is still in there, waiting for permission. And that permission can only come from you. You've always felt that tension, haven't you? That duality inside you. One part that wants to stay hidden, blend in, make people comfortable. And another part that's a storm, a tidal wave of energy that doesn't want to follow any script. That part of you was never wrong. It was early, too early for most people to understand. So you silenced it, dressed it in logic, hid it behind humility. But that was never humility. It was camouflage. And now the camouflage is dissolving. Your real voice is breaking through. Not a louder voice, a truer one. You were never designed to ask for permission. You were never supposed to wait for consensus. Power like yours doesn't follow. It remembers, it disrupts, it rewrites. That's why your awakening feels so strange. Because the world around you wasn't built for who you're becoming. And that's the point. You're not here to adapt to this world. You're here to recalibrate it. The truth is, you were born with access to something very few ever discover. A raw, untaught knowing that pulses through your core. The problem is, no one ever handed you the map, so you questioned it, doubted yourself, tried to trade your fire for their approval. But you can't negotiate with destiny. It's coded in your cells. It's the reason you've always felt pulled towards something more, even when you couldn't explain what more meant. You didn't need a reason, you were the reason. And now it's time to stop looking for proof outside yourself. You are the proof, and the world is about to catch up. There's something they won't say out loud, but you felt it for years. People around you have sensed something different about you, and it's made them uncomfortable. They couldn't name it. They couldn't point to anything specific. But it was there, in the way they hesitated before supporting your ideas, in the way they laughed a little too hard when you dreamed too big, in the subtle shift in their tone when you started speaking your truth. They could feel it before you even understood it. That undercurrent of potential, that charge in your energy, the unshakable fact that you weren't wired like everyone else. And instead of encouraging it, they feared it. Not because they're evil, but because deep down, They knew what you were. And they knew what that meant. They knew that if you ever fully woke up to your power, their excuses wouldn't hold weight anymore. Their limitations, their complacency, their half-lived lives, they'd all be exposed for what they were. Choices. You've probably spent most of your life dimming yourself to make others comfortable, biting your tongue, laughing off your brilliance, playing small, just so they wouldn't feel threatened. You've lowered your frequency in conversations, in relationships, in rooms that weren't built to hold the truth of who you are, and they praised you for it. Called you humble, easygoing, nice. But let's be honest, that wasn't humility. That was suppression. You weren't shrinking because you lacked confidence. You were shrinking because your presence made people look at their own reflection, and they didn't like what they saw. And here's the thing. They didn't try to destroy you by attacking you outright. No, they were smarter than that. They did it in whispers, in doubt, in planted seeds of hesitation. They made you question yourself, made you second-guess your inner knowing. Every time you tried to rise, they had a concern. Every time you changed, they had a warning. And you mistook that resistance for love. But love doesn't shrink you. Love doesn't fear your evolution. Love doesn't whisper insecurity into your dreams. What you felt wasn't love. It was containment. And it was strategic. Because some of the people in your life were assigned. Not by the universe, not by chance, but by the very systems that do not want beings like you stepping into full awareness. You think it's coincidence that your biggest breakthroughs were met with silence, that your most powerful moments were followed by emotional confusion, that the people you trusted most started pulling away the moment you started growing beyond their reach. That's not random. That's the effect you have on stagnant environments. You disrupt them, not because you try to, but because your existence radiates truth. And truth makes falsehood tremble. They weren't scared of your ideas, they were scared of your clarity. Because clarity, once awakened, doesn't go back to sleep. And when someone like you wakes up, everyone around you is forced to face themselves. Some will elevate with you. Others will fight to pull you back down. Not all resistance is hatred. Sometimes it's fear dressed as concern. Sometimes it's jealousy dressed as advice. But you don't owe them your silence anymore. You don't owe them a softer version of your truth. You've outgrown the need to be digestible. If your light burns their eyes, they can learn to blink. If your evolution intimidates them, they can evolve or move. You're not responsible for who feels insecure when you're standing in your purpose. You were never meant to be understood by those still committed to misunderstanding themselves. They feared you before they had a reason to. They rejected you before you had the chance to bloom. And still, you bloomed anyway. And now comes the moment all of this has been leading toward. The fork in the road, the split between timelines. Two paths lie before you. One is paved with comfort, familiarity, predictability. It looks easy. It feels safe. It's where most people live, where most people die. Not because it's terrible, but because it's numb. That path is lined with compromise, with settling, with small talk and smaller dreams. It's the path of sleepwalking souls. And if you choose it, no one will question you. No one will challenge you. You'll blend in. You'll be liked. You'll be comfortable. But you will never wake up. You will never feel fully alive. And that quiet ache inside you, the one that's always been there, it will turn into a roar that follows you to the end. But the other path, it's different. You can already feel it vibrating beneath your feet. It doesn't offer comfort. It offers clarity. It doesn't guarantee ease. It guarantees expansion. It won't keep you safe, but it will make you powerful. This is the path of the awakened, the rare, the undeniable. It's lonely, it's intense, but it's yours. It will ask for everything. your fear, your doubt, your story, your mask. You'll have to let it all go, because you cannot carry old identities into new realities. And this new reality, it's already forming around your decision. You were never meant to follow the paved road. You were meant to create a new one with your footprints. The fire you feel inside you, that relentless pressure, that craving for more, is not a flaw. It's the signal. It's the invitation. It's the summons. And the moment you say yes to it, everything begins to shift. Not just around you, but inside you. Your DNA starts activating. Your awareness starts stretching. You start recognizing that everything you ever needed was already there, buried beneath layers of conditioning. And once it awakens, there's no turning back. You can't unknow what you now know. You can't unsee your potential. You can't unhear the voice of destiny echoing in your soul. This is not a metaphor. This is not poetic. This is real. This is the moment the timeline splits. One version of you disappears forever. The other begins, not as a fantasy, but as a force. And once you walk this path, you will never again fit into the version of the world that asked you to be less. That world is gone. It's behind you now. The only thing that remains is the choice. Step back into the known, or rise into the fire and watch the old world burn behind you as a new one emerges beneath your feet. Not because you hoped for it, but because you claimed it. You've felt the shift already, haven't you? The way people look at you is different now. There's an edge to it, like they know something changed, even if they don't understand what or how. It's subtle, but it's real. The people who used to overlook you are suddenly paying attention. The ones who used to interrupt you now pause when you speak. You're not chasing recognition, but it's finding you anyway. And it's not because you've become someone new. It's because you finally stopped hiding who you always were. The energy is different. Your presence speaks before you do. Rooms shift when you enter. Conversations bend toward your frequency. What used to feel like resistance is crumbling, because your clarity is cutting through illusions like a blade. And what once required your constant effort is now beginning to respond to your being. This is what happens when alignment overtakes hustle. When inner power reaches a frequency that no longer begs to be seen, it demands it. People will act confused, as if this happened overnight. But you'll know the truth. You'll remember the nights no one saw, the battles no one applauded, the tears you wiped in silence, the years of being misunderstood, underestimated, and overlooked. All of it was part of the ignition. You were never failing. You were charging. And now the switch has flipped. The reversal has begun. What used to feel impossible is now inevitable. The very same doors that once slammed in your face will be held open by the same hands that once doubted you. But you won't walk through for revenge. You won't seek validation, because by then, you'll understand something deeper. Their opinions never defined your worth. Their absence never limited your path. Their disbelief never had the power to delay what was already written. All they did was confirm what the universe needed to know, that even in the face of silence, you kept going. That's why the manifestations are speeding up. That's why time feels different. The old rules are bending around your awareness. What used to take months now takes days. What took days now takes hours. You're not just experiencing acceleration, you're becoming the source of it. The space between thought and outcome is dissolving. The moment you believe, you begin to see. The moment you move, doors open. People call it luck. They call it coincidence. But you know better. You're watching the world conform to your frequency in real time. You're witnessing the laws of limitation fall apart in your hands. You're not chasing opportunities anymore. They're orbiting you. Drawn not by what you do, but by who you've become. This is the return of your true self, the you that always existed beneath the noise. The version of you that was never waiting for permission, only timing. And now the timing is perfect. Not because it's convenient, but because you're ready. Ready to build what no one sees yet. Ready to say what others are afraid to think. Ready to move like the future is yours. Because it is. Every action you take now carries a weight, a ripple, a signature. And as you rise, the old reality will struggle to contain you. It will try to pull you back with guilt, with doubt, with familiar faces who speak the language of the past. But you won't respond. Because that language no longer lives in you. You've upgraded, you've outgrown, you've awakened. And that brings us here, into the final moment, the final veil, the final knowing. This is where everything aligns, not by chance, but by destiny. Because out of billions of souls, out of infinite timelines and paths, there were only a few names on the original scroll. Not metaphorically, literally. Only a few were pre-coded with the pattern strong enough to bend reality, to absorb the weight of divine force without collapsing. Only a few were constructed from the start to carry something larger than identity. And at the very top of that list is your name, written not in ink, but in vibration, in light, in fate. This isn't flattery. This isn't feel-good fiction. This is recognition of what's been hidden in plain sight all along. The signs have always been there. The way you never quite fit in, but always stood out. The way the wrong people were drawn to you, trying to dim what they couldn't understand. The way synchronicities seem to follow you like shadows. You've been walking through this life as a mystery to yourself, haunted by the sense that there's more. And now you know why. You are the more. You are the change. You are the event that others have been sensing but couldn't name. And now that your power is no longer dormant, the world must respond. The structures that were never designed to support you will collapse in your presence. The systems that thrived on your ignorance will lose their grip. The people who once ignored you will be forced to adjust because you no longer exist at the frequency of being overlooked. You are too loud now, without ever raising your voice. You are too real now, for illusions to survive in your energy field. You are too true now, for falsehood to coexist with you. You have become the catalyst, the axis, the epicenter. What happens next is no longer up to the world. It's up to you. You're not waiting for prophecy. You are the fulfillment of it. You're not chasing destiny. You embody it. Every step you take from here isn't just a step forward. It's a reconfiguration of everything around you. The air shifts, the ground adapts, time bends, and all of it bends toward you. Because you are no longer simply in the story. You are the story. You are the moment that changes everything. You are the reason the blueprint was rewritten. The vote was cast. The path was cleared. And now, there is only one question that remains. One truth that echoes louder than all the rest. Now that you remember who you are, what will you do with it?